Back in October when I was considering buying a box controller, I had two very separate reactions. Holy shit, that looks sexy. And so on November 3rd, 2018, I bought the box with the promise that it would be shipping sometime in December. Now, as some of you may know or have figured out based on this video, I never received that box. And so for my birthday this year, I went to Oakland for Genesis, which was an amazing event, an amazing experience, and I really cannot recommend it enough. One of the highlights for me at this event was definitely the Hitbox booth, where you got to sit down, talk with the people that made the Smashbox, and actually use it and try it out. And after playing with the Smashbox for a decent amount of time and being able to talk to Hitbox Dustin, yes, that Hitbox Dustin, for a decent amount of time, I decided to pick it up because they actually had it in person and I could buy it and take it home right there. And so, as some of you may know, Genesis was about a month ago, and so I've now been using it for a month and I'm going to make a review on it. So should you buy a Smashbox? Well, probably not. It's not that the product is bad. The product is very good. I think that if you're looking for a box controller, the Smashbox will provide exactly what you're looking for. There are a lot of buttons on the controller, so you can customize it in pretty much whatever layout you want to, and the remapping software and angle customization is really fucking easy. Like, seriously, props to the Hitbox team, because they made this ridiculously easy for pretty much anyone to use. With all that being said, the controller is not flawless and it has its issues, namely the issue that it doesn't exactly feel like a finished product. Like, obviously, I've never made one of these controllers, I have no idea how to make one of these controllers, but there are some issues with it that you wouldn't expect to have to deal with after, spending $200 on a controller. I think my main issue with this controller is simply the nunchuck being completely obsolete. Like, obviously, I never expected to go pro using a nunchuck in the right half of the fucking controller, but I at least expect it to work, and it doesn't. Now, if you're wondering what I mean by that, if you leave the nunchuck enabled in the settings, and you do not have a nunchuck plugged in, sometimes it will randomly hit Z or L, even if you're not touching the fucking controller. I really shouldn't have to explain why that's a bad thing. Randomly jumping or randomly grabbing in the middle of a game. It's kind of a flaw. And it's just such a nuisance to have to load into the software and reflash your Smashbox every single time you want to change any setting. That's completely not worth it to ever have the nunchuck enabled in the first place. In fact, it actually ships with the nunchuck disabled for this exact reason, I imagine. Another fairly large issue I have with the Smashbox is the cable. It's a detachable cable, which is the first for this third generation Smashbox, but it just kind of comes across as flimsy, and there are a lot of people in the Discord saying that their cable breaks and doesn't work properly, and when you're using it, you totally understand how that could be the case, because it doesn't feel sturdy. I think my final issue with the product is simply the user experience isn't going to be the greatest for anyone that's completely new to this kind of thing. Any tutorials you'll find on how to use the Smashbox are years old, they pretty much only relate to Melee, and they use the old shitty Smashbox design instead of the newer, sleeker one. That wasn't the biggest deal in the world for me. I was able to pick up the controller pretty easily, and I do fairly well with it. My biggest issue is that anyone that's completely new to this is just probably going to have a difficult time and be completely turned off from it. With all that being said, I think the Smashbox is a fantastic controller. With the exception of just a few flaws, it really does feel like a really fun new way to play Smash Bros. It's certainly not for everyone, and if you've looked at a picture of one of these, or if you've watched the beginning of this video and you thought, who the fuck would use that? Don't get a Smashbox, don't get any box, stick with your GameCube controller, because it is going to take a fuckload of time and a fuckload of practice if you want to get anywhere near just the level that you used to be at on your old controller. If I could leave on one final note, I'd love to discuss the legality of these controllers. If you don't care about that, thank you for watching, you can click away now. Currently, the Melee scene is doing something kind of wonderful in reevaluating the rule set that they've been using all these years and banning wobbling. My local scene has started to freeze Stadium and make Final Destination a counterpick. My point is, it's nice to see that a community that's been around as long as Melee has is still thriving and still trying out new things. And I think the argument for banning box controllers is frankly ridiculous. Like, people have no idea how difficult it is to pick up a box controller and start using it, the kind of practice and dedication it takes to start using it. And frankly, it really doesn't make you better than anyone else. It makes you slightly more consistent, maybe, but you're still at a pretty huge disadvantage by not having as many angles or as many options as people that have been playing with the same controller for years. Like, don't get me wrong, there are things with the Smashbox that I think are honestly kind of broken, but there's nobody out there, including hacks, that can actually capitalize on it in a way that makes it not tournament viable. There may be a day in which we have to revisit box legality because somebody comes out of nowhere and does the most busted, broken shit with it, but it's incredibly unlikely, and there's no reason we shouldn't be trying new things right now. Sorry, I made the review just a little bit longer than I had intended on doing, but that is it. Those are my thoughts on it. I think both the box and the Smashbox have their own merits. I do not have a box, so I cannot speak to how well it performs, but I do have the Smashbox, and I think it's a fantastic product. And if you're at all interested in a box controller, I would recommend trying to get your hands on it and trying one out, probably before you purchase one. But if you are interested in purchasing one, links are in the description below. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time.